How's everybody doing today? I certainly hope you're doing well. It is time for another edition of Story Time. So I like to let people know whether or not it's a true story or not. It is not a true story. It is a story in which I've created. Now, it's going to be a long-winder. It'll probably be, I've practiced it 2 times before. One time was like 47 minutes. Another time was 55 minutes. So it's going to be a long-winded story. So the name of this story is called Ominous Cure 521. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. There was a young man by the name of William. He was 25 years of age, and he was an excellent lawnmower mechanic. Yeah, he could work on cars and trucks and all that stuff, but, his absolute specialty was working on lawnmowers, specifically riding lawnmowers. Now, he could work on the kind of lawnmowers that, you got to sit there and pull on the rope and all that stuff, but he was really good at riding lawnmowers. And for years and years, he had been working in the back offices of these other establishments that would send them out to the field, or, he would just fix their lawnmowers there. Now, the reason why he worked in the back room is because, you see, William had a really bad time of communications. He had a stuttering problem. He had always had a stuttering problem. He'd been stuttering since he was just a little guy, right? So, what is he going to do? I mean, he'd been to every specialist, all the doctors. I mean, he's tried all these medications and everything, and nothing has worked. And even to this day, he stutters, and he can't help it. So, he'd saved all this money because of the years and years and years and years that he had been working in these back offices for someone else. But he was determined. He was going to figure out a way that he could open up his own business and make the money himself with his own clients and responsibility. But he had to figure out a way how to do it. And how he was going to do it is he was going to get his brother to make contact, verbal contact with the client, arrange of when William would go out to fix her lawnmower. And then when it came time for payment, his brother would handle all of that. William would simply fix what needed to be fixed. Now, to make sure that William would not have to have any sort of communication verbal with the client, well, his brother would just tell the client a little story. Say that, well, he just had some sort of surgery and he can't talk. So if you need to have any sort of communication, you're going to have to do it through text messaging because, he just had surgery. So William decided he was going to go down to Secretary of State and hook up a LLC. He's got everything legal, taxes. He's even got a little building in that. So he can run the calls out, and all the calls that come into the building are forwarded to his brother. And his brother makes all these arrangements. So a call was made, and his very first client, the specifications from the client was he was to type in the key code of the garage, start the lawnmower because it would start, but it was running really rough. It needed a really good tune-up. Take the lawnmower off to the side of the house, kind of like in the front yard, but on the side of the house, in the grass, as not to leak any oil on the concrete. Okay? So he gets in his Jeep and he drives on out there. His very first client. So he's got to make sure that, number one, he's on time. 2, he follows the specifications that the client requested. And he's got everything in text messages from his brother that is telling him what he needs to do. He opens up the garage door and he pulls out the lawnmower to the side front part of the house. And you see this client, it's kind of a nice neighborhood. Okay? Pretty nice house. But the street in which the client lived on was a pretty busy street too. Maybe 15 cars per hour. So it wasn't like just, in a cul-de-sac somewhere. Oh no, it was on the main street, but sort of a busy street, for that area. So William's down there and he's tinkering around with it and trying to get this thing working right and checking the oil and checking all the fluids and making sure the gas isn't fouled or just making sure the spark plugs are right, just going over it. And as he's working on that lawnmower, he hears this, and a car had hit something. So when he looked up, and he stood up, he could see that a car had hit a cat. And as he started walking towards the vehicle to see what the vehicle had hit, the car's gone. Hit and run. I mean, it was just a cat, but still, it's still a hit and run, right? So, William can hear the cat is in agony. The cat cannot move at all. Well, William can't stand for that, because he's not that type of person. So he walks into the garage to see if he can get a board. He does find a board about 2 foot by 2 foot. He decided to start the lawnmower, bring it to the backyard, close the garage door. He took the board that he found in the garage and he slipped it up underneath the cat, as not to break any bones or anything, or to injure it further from the car accident, right? He took the board, he placed it in the back of his Jeep, and he drove to the veterinarian's hospital. See, William had been living in that area for about 10 years, so he knew about where everything was. Plus, he'd been working all these lawnmowers for all these other years, for all these other people. So he knew his way around. He walks into the door of the veterinarian, and he's got this cat on this board, and he's just a shaking boy, because he doesn't want to talk, because he knows as soon as he opens his mouth, he's going to start stuttering, and he can't help it. And he doesn't want to think that these people are, like he's playing a game or he's making a joke of anything, because this is serious, right? He's got that cat up there, and he just brings it up like this. And the receptionist lady, she's about 65 years of age, and she goes, "Oh my goodness, what happened?" And he's got to talk. He has no choice. He goes, "Well, I was working on a lawn mower, and all of a sudden this car came by and hit this cat." And she started smiling at him. She's kind of being rude in that, because she doesn't know he's got a stuttering problem. How many people do you know stutter, right? But this guy had a really bad stuttering problem, and William had been stuttering all his life. He just can't help it. So she kind of smiling at him, other people giggling around in the room. She goes, "Are you pranking me?" He goes, "No, I'm not pranking you. That's exactly what happened." She's like, "Oh, okay, all right. Well, all right, well, you know what? I tell you what, just leave it here. Have a seat. We're going to have you fill out some paperwork, kind of like an incident report. And somebody will give you that paperwork, and we'll kind of give you an update. Is this your cat?" And he goes, "No, this is not my cat." She's like, "Okay, all right." And she noticed there's a little tag on the cat's collar there. So there's name and phone number and all that stuff. And Williams, I'm sure, it's very appreciative to the owner of the cat that he brought the cat in, right? Even though it wasn't his cat. So he sits down, he's kind of filling out this incident report and whatever. And about 10 to 15 minutes later, this young lady, she's about 25 years of age too. She's good looking too. She's got long brown hair, really pretty eyes. And she goes, so, can you tell me what happened with your cat exactly? Because she's an assistant to one of the doctors over there, right? He didn't want to talk. Of course he didn't want to talk. He's, a stutter, and plus she's good looking. She's pretty, right? And he goes, "Well, what happened was I was working on this lawnmower, and he noticed immediately he's not stuttering." Like magic. Everybody loves magic, don't they? He's not stuttering once. He's like, "Oh yeah, and I was working on this this riding lawnmower, and I was checking the oil and spark plugs, and I heard that." And then I just looked up, and I noticed that they're in there. So anyway, so I brought it here. Now, she doesn't think anything of it because, this woman communicates with everybody all the time. But you see, this is groundbreaking. for William because he didn't stutter once. Not once. He was amazed. He couldn't believe it. In all his life, he was never ever to have a conversation like that and not stutter once. He couldn't figure it out. So William said, "Can I ask what your name is?" She goes, "Oh, my name's Danielle." She goes, "Do you fix cars too?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I can fix cars as well, but I really specialize in these riding lawnmowers." Again, he is not stuttering at all. It's fascinating. She's like, "Okay, well, we have the name and number, and the cat had a little tag there, and we'll contact the owners. And, it was very sweet of you to bring in the cat. I'm sure the owners will be extremely appreciative. But you know what? Just on a side note, do you think you could fix my lawnmower? Because it's been sitting out in the rain and the snow and all that, all winter long. It needs a good tune-up. Do you think you could do that?" And he goes, "Oh, sure, I could do that. I can fix anything. I just look at it, listen to it, I can fix it." So they exchanged telephone numbers, and Danielle had told William that she was going to call him later that night to make an arrangement of a certain day that maybe he'd come out there and fix that. Yeah. So William got up, got in his Jeep, and he's heading back to the client's house. But all this driving around and that, he's got to go get fuel. So he goes into the gas station, and he figures, well, he'll get $10 worth of fuel. And the lady says, "How much do you need? And what pump number?" He goes, "Well, I need to get about $10 worth of fuel." He's stuttering again. He can't figure it out. Why is it that he was stuttering at the reception at the veterinarian's hospital? He didn't stutter once with Danielle. Not once. And now he's at the gas station. He's stuttering again. He can't figure it out. Can't figure it out. So he goes back to the client's house, punches in the key to get inside the garage. He pulls the lawnmower out from the backyard on the side front of the yard again, and starts working on, fixes it up real tight and nice, puts the lawnmower back into the garage, punches in the key code to close the garage door, and off he goes. He calls up his brother, or actually he sends him a text message. He says, "I'm done with this job. Do what you gotta do so you can take care of billing." Oh, he's waiting by the phone too, because Danielle said he'd call him about 6 o'clock. And you know something? When it comes to all these doctors and nurses and all that stuff, they got to be on time. They got to be on time because you know what? Hey, people are dependent on them to be on time, right? He's just waiting by the phone. He's just waiting. He can't wait to talk to her again because there's something going on there. He didn't stutter one time with her, but with everybody else he is. 6 o'clock runs around. It's 6:02. Bam! Who's on the other line? Oh, it's Danielle. So he gets to think, well, hell, am I going to stutter on the phone? I mean, we're not in person. Well, he's going to test it. Hello? She's like, yeah, you came in at the veterinarian hospital and you had that cat in there on the board and such, and we were talking about lawnmowers, and I was wondering if you... And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I can do that for you in no time. I mean, anytime you need me to come out there, I can come out there. You can bring it to me." And he's not stuttering a bit. Not even on the phone. Now that's amazing. Something's going on. So apparently whatever's going on, it's Danielle. It has to be. There's no other explanation. It has to be Danielle. So Danielle says to him like this, "Well, you know what? I got a really, really busy work week. And you see, I work part-time at the veterinarian hospital, but yet I go to school at the other part of the day. And, could you come out tonight? Would that be too much to ask?" Oh, William's like, "Oh, I can come out there right now. No problem. I'll load up all my tools and we'll get it all fixed up for you." And Danielle's like, "You know what? What I really need done too is, can you make it that when you pull on the rope there to get it started, that it pulls a little bit easier? Because, I'm just me. And even though, I'm working and such and doing my thing, and I don't know, sometimes it's hard to pull on it." So he's like, "Oh, sure, no problem." So he grabs his tool, he heads off to Danielle's property. So that way he can fix her lawnmower. So he gets out there and they're having a little chatty-do, and she offers him some lemonade and he's working on it. And hell, it only takes him about 20 minutes. He knows right what the problem is. It just needs a new spark plug. You know how it is, guys, right? Hook it up with a little spark plug action. Make sure you got it keyed right. Changes the oil on it. Dumps out all the gas out. It puts in some fresh gas. And then he goes to tune up, the rest of it. Make sure that when she pulls on it first try, it'll pull right away. And it's not so damn hard for her. So, about 20 minutes later, he says, hey, Danielle, we got her all fixed up for her. Why don't you go over here and give it a try? She reaches down, she grabs that, and she... First time, you know what I mean? William's a good mechanic. I wouldn't mind having him for my mechanic. So anyway, William goes on to tell her, you know something? If you ever need anything done, and he's not stuttering. If you need anything done, ever, you be sure to give me a call if there's something happens with your car, your truck, or a friend, or your mom, or your dad, or anything. Just keep my number. Don't forget. She's like, oh, all right. Off he goes, right? So, William gets back home and he's thinking to himself, now hold on a second. He's trying to go through his day. Okay, so he met with the receptionist and he stuttered there. Then when Danielle showed up, he had a long conversation with her there and he didn't stutter at all. Then he went to the gas station, got some gas, in which he stuttered there. Danielle called on the telephone, not in person, but on the telephone, and he didn't stutter there. And then he went to go fix her lawnmower, and he didn't stutter there. Yep, it's Danielle. It's got to be Danielle. So he immediately goes to his brother's house in person, because he's got to break the news to his brother that he's met this woman that is obviously the ominous cure. What in the hell is going on? He's got to talk to somebody with some sense that knows him the best. And who's that going to be? That's going to be his own brother. He goes over to his brother's house. His brother's name is Richard. He says, Richard, you know something? I met this woman at the veterinary hospital, and when I'm talking to her, I hardly even stutter. And William's like, still stuttering with his brother, right? So Richard said, I don't believe that. That doesn't make sense. You went to the best specialists. You went to the best doctors. You took some of the best medications. You've been stuttering all your life, William. Get a grip on yourself. There's no way that an individual's presence alone could cure you from anything. It's wishful thinking. William's a little upset about that now, because he experienced it 3 separate times. Once in person at the veterinarian's hospital, once on the phone, and then again at Danielle's house. William's not crazy. He's kind of upset about it too. So he looks at Richard. He says, "Listen, I'm telling you, it's true. That really happened." And Richard's like, no, hogwash, man. It didn't happen. You're fantasizing, William. You're fantasizing. There is no. He goes, listen, I will prove it to you. He goes, how are you going to prove it to me? William's getting pissed off because he knows it's true. But Richard is getting pissed off at William because he knows it's BS. So how is he going to prove it to him? To his brother. How's he going to prove it? Well, he's going to go down to the veterinarian hospital with his brother Richard and prove it in person. Yep. So the next day, at around the same exact time that he brought the cat in, Richard and William go to the veterinarian hospital, and Richard talks to the receptionist, the same woman. She's about in her 60s, right? And he asks specifically for Danielle. Danielle comes out. Danielle says, "Oh, William, how are you doing?" And William starts talking. He's like, "Oh, I'm doing great. You know, it's been, what has it been? A whole 24 hours since I've seen you? And by the way, how's your lawnmower working?" And he's just having this conversation. And his brother Richard, his jaw is dropped. His eyes are this big around. He can't believe it. Something is going on here. So they have a little chatty-do, and they leave. So Richard asks William, he goes, "William, I have to admit, you proved me wrong, and I'm shocked. So, how is that even possible? That doesn't even make sense." And William looks at Richard and he goes, "I know, it doesn't make any sense at all." And there he is. He's stuttering again, even with his own brother. So his brother gets to thinking, you know something? He knows some people that work down at the hospital. He's going to have a little chatty-do with them. Some people that specialize in speech therapy and all that sort of stuff. So he calls one of them up and he says, "You know something? I witnessed something with my own eyes that is absolutely fascinating." And he told this doctor about how the presence of this one gal, Danielle, somehow, some way, he can't even explain it, is the cure. And it just sounds the craziest thing of all time. And the doctor in which Richard is talking to us in disbelief, he's like, "Oh, you're full of it. I don't believe you. Nonsense, hogwash." He goes, "I will prove it to you. If you bring in 3 to 4 people that have stuttering problems, and you have some sort of controlled situation, you can videotape it the whole 9 yards. We can bring Danielle into that controlled situation of people she's never ever met in all her life, and we will see if these people indeed stutter or they don't. What do you say?" And the doctor is like, "What's he got to lose? He has nothing to lose." I mean, Richard and this doctor, they know each other. They've known each other for years. And how do they know each other? Because of William. Because William went to these doctors and specialists to try to curb or stop entirely his stuttering, which they never could. So the doctor agreed. But you see, William is so fascinated about this entire situation, he got to thinking, now hold on a second here. William's thinking to himself. He's not speaking to himself because he stutters, but he's thinking in his mind. Now hold on. I've saved $60,000. I got my own shop. Let's see, I'm doing my own thing. As long as I'm around Danielle, I don't stutter. So maybe I can give her a proposition to come work for me instead of the veterinarian hospital. This way I won't stutter. And if I'm around her long enough, maybe it'll rub off to where I'll never stutter again. That's what he's going to do. He calls up Danielle up on the phone later that night. He's like, "Danielle, this is William. I have a proposition for you. I would like you to come work for me. And I'm not trying to be rude, but how much money do you make in a month?" She goes, "Well, you know, I'm part-time there because I work part-time, and then the other time I go to school. I make about $800-900 after taxes." William says, "I'll pay you $3,000. We'll do you a 1099. You'll pay 27.75% taxes. You just do it at the end of the year. You can do it monthly with Social Security and all that stuff. What do you say? I'll pay you once a week, too." She goes, "Well, you know what? I'm going to need to talk to my fiancé about that." I don't know what he'll say, but I tell you what, I'll give you an answer on Monday. Would that be all right? William's like, oh yeah, that'd be just fine. So, William's just doing his thing. He's fixing these lawnmowers. And every single day he's thinking to himself, man, I certainly hope that Danielle will work for me. Because if Danielle will work for me, I'm not going to be stuttering as long as I'm around her. As long as I'm talking to her on the phone, as long as she's in my presence, I won't be stuttering. This is a beautiful thing. He's so excited too. Sunday night he gets a phone call from who? Danielle. Danielle has talked to her fiancé. And she agrees to indeed start working for him. But she's not going to start working for him on Monday. She's going to start working for him on a Wednesday. Because she's got to give a couple of days' notice to her, her previous employer. That would be rude. That wouldn't be right. And she's already kind of told her employer, when William contacted the first time and gave her this proposition, that might very well be a possibility. So, come Wednesday, 7 o'clock in the morning, he calls up Danielle and says, Danielle, here's the address in which you need to be and all that. And we start at 9 o'clock. And we work until about 4 or 5. And if it's really not so busy, then we'll leave at 3, or we'll go to a movie, or go to lunch or supper, or whatever we do, And he's not stuttering again. He's still not stuttering. Meanwhile, Richard and this doctor, they're setting something up. They're trying to get everything set up for the controlled situation of bringing all these other people that Danielle's never met, she doesn't know, that stutter, that have really bad stuttering problems. Yeah. They're trying to set all this up on when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it. Well, a week goes by and Danielle's been working for William there. They're getting along just fine. She's taking all the calls coming in, making all the arrangements and such. Doing all the billing. She's taken over literally what Richard did, his brother. So, Richard goes to the office on a Thursday afternoon. And he says, Danielle, can I talk to you? She's like, sure. Well, see, William's out in the field. He's fixing a lawnmower somewhere. He goes, listen, I have a proposition for you. She goes, no. Listen, I'm working for William, and I'm not going to be hopping from job to job. He goes, no. It's not like that. He goes, I know that you were a veterinarian for so long there, but we're doing a trial. And this trial is, it's over at the hospital, and it's a controlled trial. It's just an experiment, if you will. It's going to be videotaped and all that stuff. And we were wondering if you would participate. And we are willing to pay you $500 in cash for 6 hours. Danielle's blown away. She's like, what? $500 in 6 hours. Ching, a ching, a ching, ching, is what she's thinking. So she's like, when? He goes, tomorrow. I would need you to be there at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and, for as long as the experiment goes on. She's like, well, you know what? I'm going to have to consult William, because William is my employer. And it would be rude of me, not to consult him first. And then Richard says, oh no, we got that already tidied up, because by the time he was to come back today, he was going to tell you to take Friday off anyway. And she's like confused. She just doesn't feel right, because something ain't right. She doesn't know what it is, but $500 is a lot of money to be passing up for 6 hours of doing nothing. Right? So, Friday rolls around the next day. 9 o'clock. She meets in front of the hospital, the front doors of the hospital. She meets with Richard. They walk into this room, to this doctor's office. There are 4 people sitting in that room, not including the doctor, right? There are 4 patients sitting in there. There's 1 male and 3 females. These are people that have extreme stuttering problems. You have Richard, and then you have the doctor, and they got cameras set up everywhere, like panoramically. And they tell Danielle, Danielle, we need you to wait outside of the office just for about 10 minutes. So, Richard comes in, and Richard doesn't know any of the other people that have stuttering problems. He's never met them in all his life. And they haven't met him, so they don't even know who Richard is. But the doctor does. Richard sits down, and he tells the first male, he goes, my name is Richard, and I'm a friend of Dr. Swit. That's S-W-I-T. What is your name? Well, the first fella goes, my name is Paul. And he says, okay, Paul, how long have you lived here in this state? He goes, I've lived here for about 4 years. And he's like, okay, all right. Then he goes to one of the females. And he goes, my name is Richard, and I'm a friend of Dr. Swit. What is your name? She goes, my name is Becky. Well, how long have you lived here? I've lived for about a year. And the next one, these people are stuttering. They can't get out a sentence without stuttering. All of this is being videotaped live. Then they call Danielle in. She sits in the same chair that Richard was sitting in. And she's handed a piece of paper. The piece of paper states that she is to identify herself to these other 4 people, but ask them questions as well. That's what she does. She sits there and she goes, hi everyone, my name is Danielle. I'm 25 years of age, and I've been living here all of my life. She goes to the first one, the male, says, and what is your name? This guy just starts spewing out everything and doesn't stutter one time. Not once. Goes to the female. What is your name? She's just rattling at the mouth, and she's not stuttering either. And all of the people in the room, their jaws are hitting the floor. Because now they know for a fact that indeed it is Danielle. It has to be. There's no other explanation. None. It has to be Danielle. So this goes on for about 1 hour, where all of them were having conversations with each other. And they were able to talk to Dr. Sweat, and they were able to talk to Richard, and they were able to talk to each other, and they were able to talk to Danielle. But as soon as Danielle left, guess what? All 4 of those patients went right back to stuttering. And it was all documented. So indeed it was Danielle. So the experiment lasted for about 2.5 to 3 hours, and they sent Danielle on her way after paying her $500 in cash. Yeah. This is amazing. Dr. Sweat is blown away because now he has video evidence. Plus he has all the charting of the previous instances and therapies and treatments and medications on every single patient. So he knows for a fact himself that Danielle is indeed the ominous cure. It's absolutely amazing. So she goes on her way, and hell, the weekend's here. You know how it is. She's got $500 extra. I guess her and her fiance are going to go out and do whatever it is that they do. She doesn't have to go back to work until Monday morning. She's got to work for William because William hired her. William hired her away from the veterinarian hospital because he wanted to be around her, because when he's around her, he doesn't stutter. Makes him feel pretty good, too. He can communicate and get everything that he wants to say right off his chest, and he doesn't have to worry about stuttering. But you see, Dr. Sweat, he's got something else in mind. So Dr. Sweat takes all of the video evidence that he took of this controlled experiment, and he contacts yet another doctor and sends little fragments of videos to those other doctors, and the word gets around that Danielle is the ominous cure. Indeed she is. So Monday morning rolls around. She's got to be at work at 9 a.m. to work for William, because he fixes lawnmowers. So over the weekend, Danielle got quite the surprise. Not only did she make $500 on Friday in one day, or actually just a couple hours. It was supposed to be for 6 hours, but it was only really for 3. Danielle even got a bigger surprise. Yep, sure did. Because her fiance asked her to marry her. Gave her a really nice ring with a big old rock on it. You know how it is, ladies. Oh, that's a big deal right there, isn't it? That's time for a celebration. Monday morning, she's eager as hell to go in to work for William, because William's really professional. He's not interested in anything romantic with Danielle. Oh, hell no. He just needs to be around her to stop stuttering, right? So she is so eager to show William that big old rock on her finger, because her fiance proposed to her on Sunday. So she walks in there and she's like, "Oh, William, you know something? Here, here, have a seat." And what's the deal? What's going on? Oh, William's all excited. What's going on? Well, I just want to let you know that my fiance proposed to me, and he gave me a big old ring. Look at it. And William grabs her hand, and as he pulls her hand towards him, he notices that there's tattoos in between her fingers. 5, 2, 1. William notices that right away. He's like, that's a beautiful ring, but why is there 5, 2, 1 in between your fingers? Well, what is that all about, those tattoos? She goes, well, I know it's kind of embarrassing to say, but you see, my birthday, my personal birthday, is May 20th. And seeing that I was adopted, well, my adopted mother's birthday, her birthday is on 5/21. And my sister, who's not really my sister, but kind of like my stepsister, well, her birthday just happens to be on 5/19. I get them all mixed up, you know what I mean? And I can never remember whose birthday is what birthday, so I just figured, seeing that my mother, even though she's really not my mother because I was adopted, I put 5/2/1 so I'd never forget it, ever. He's like, okay, that makes sense. So he goes, oh, that really is a nice ring. That, you know what, congratulations, or hugging each other or whatever. And he goes, you know what, if it's a slow day, let's just go get some ice cream somewhere. Let's go do lunch or a movie and just celebrate, right? William's kind of good. He's kind of like Monty, you know what I mean? Good guy. So they do whatever it is that they do, but Richard is getting all kinds of ideas on how he's going to share with the world this ominous cure. Danielle doesn't even know what's going on. She just did her experiment, made $500. She thinks it's over with, but it's not over with. Because suddenly, Dr. Sweat is getting pounds on his door. And who's pounding on his door? United States military is pounding on his door. United States military goes into the offices of Dr. Sweat and demands that he hands over all paperwork concerning these 4 people that had the stuttering problem, all of the videotapes, every last detail of that experiment are to be handed over now. Not tomorrow, not with a subpoena, none of that crap. Right now, buddy, do it now or we'll take it. Well, how's he going to refuse? He's not going to refuse, and he didn't refuse, and all of that information, along with the video, everything, the transcripts of exactly what happened, all of it, went over to the United States military. Mm-hmm. So you see, that Monday, Danielle goes home for the day. Like every other day, about 4:30, 5 o'clock, because that's the time that William tells them that's it. And if they have a slow day, you know, sometimes they do, then they just go get ice cream or a movie or whatever they do, right? So, the next day, which is Tuesday, 9 o'clock, Danielle is not at the shop. And that's not like Danielle, because she's always on time. I mean, always. William's like, okay, well, maybe she just run a little late. Maybe it was like a lady problem, or who knows, you know. Maybe something came up. Things happen. Because William knows that. That's life, buddy. Your life isn't always uphill, buddy. Everybody's got a little bump in the road. 10 o'clock. Danielle's not there, and she hadn't called either. That's not like Danielle, because she's prompt, buddy. She used to be an assistant over there at veterinary hospital. She's always on time. She used to call them on time. When she said 6 o'clock, it was 6 o'clock. Something's wrong. Something is very wrong. So William doesn't have any orders to fill just right away. He's got one about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Hell, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. So as William goes to get up, he's getting ready to just... He's not ready. He's not really sure what he's ready to do. He's just kind of pondering, pacing around. Danielle's not there. She hadn't called in. He wants to call her, but he doesn't want to be too rude, right? Just as he's pacing around, he hears knocking on his door, at his office door. He goes to open the door, and they break the damn thing down, buddy. For real. Who is it? United States Army. Sure is. These guys are all tacked out. They got their battle rattle on. They got him down on his stomach, and his arms are out this way, and they're like, "Where is he?" And he's like, what do you mean? He's stuttering with them. Because Danielle's not around, buddy. She didn't show up for work. He's trying to explain to them that she didn't show up for work, she didn't call in, she didn't know... He's trying to explain this, but he stutters really bad. So they think he's playing a game with them. He's not playing a game. He really does stutter really bad. So he finally writes on a piece of paper, "Call my brother Richard." He gives the number of Richard's telephone number. Well, here they are. They're on the phone with Richard. Poor William, he's down on his stomach with... his arms out like that, guys with guns and stuff. And the military is talking to Richard. He doesn't know what's being said because he can't hear him because, he's down on the ground, right? So they hang up the phone with Richard, and all these guys just, pew, out the door they go. No explanation, nothing, right? So now William is extremely concerned that something has happened to Danielle. I mean, it had to have, right? So he gets on the phone and puts a call into Danielle. She's not answering her phone. Sure isn't. Every couple of minutes he's calling her phone. She's not answering. Something's wrong. So then he calls his brother. His brother's not answering either. Nothing. Nope. About 3 hours later, it's creeping up on the time where William needs to go to that client at 3 o'clock. Hell, it is. It's a little bit after 1 now. There's no call from Danielle. She hadn't shown up. Something is very wrong. He's still trying to call her. So then he places a call into his brother. He's still not answering. He sends in a text message to his brother. Cancel that appointment at 3 o'clock. Because William's prompt too, buddy. He sure is. Because if you're going to keep a client, you better be on time. Right? So, he doesn't know if it's canceled or not. He just merely texts his brother to make the communication with the client. Because, see, Danielle usually does that. And she's not around. She hadn't shown up. She hadn't called. Something's wrong. So at about 3:30, a half an hour later that he's supposed to be at that client's house fixing their lawnmower, his brother walks in the office door. He's so happy to see his brother too. He's like, what in the hell happened? That's what William said to Richard. He goes, well, what do you mean what happened? I was out shopping. I didn't want to be bothered. That's why I didn't answer your phone. But I did get your text message. And I did contact the client and cancel for you. He goes, what's going on? Where's Danielle? So William goes, she didn't show up. He goes, what do you mean she didn't show up? Well, did she call? He goes, she didn't call either. But he's like, Jesus, man, write it down. So William comes over here, a piece of paper. He goes, the military came by. And they had me on the floor at gunpoint. And they were asking about Danielle and where she at and all that. He had to write a big old long story about it. Richard's reading all this. So immediately, Richard got on the phone to Dr. Swit. Dr. Swit gets on the phone and tells Richard, yep, the military came by and took all of the video cameras, everything was gone. So, of course, Richard's going to ask, well, have you heard from Danielle? He goes, I hadn't heard from her. I don't know what's going on, right? Weeks go by, buddy. There's no sign. There's no word from Danielle. Not a peep. Nothing. They had contacted her fiancé. He's gone too. Just poof, disappeared. Months go by, buddy. There is no Danielle. 1 year and 3 months go by. No Danielle. Not a word. No sighting of her. No telephone call. No communication at all. Danielle is gone. Well, you see, William was working on a lawnmower, like very close to the city. And he decided, you know what? When he got done with that job, he was going to go downtown there and pick himself up a steak. Really good steak. Steak and potatoes, kind of like, I don't know, treat himself for once. So, all he has to do is go into that restaurant, point at what he wants, write on a little piece of paper, medium rare, however he wants it cooked, and he just pays for it right there on the table. I mean, it's no big deal. He doesn't even have to say anything, but he's going to enjoy his steak, right? So, after he gets done with that steak, he pays for it, he walks out the door, and he's walking down the street, and he's kind of like looking at the sights and sounds, and because he doesn't like downtown. He doesn't like even being downtown, but figures while he's already there, might as well just take a walk. So as he's walking down the street, he noticed that there's this woman. She got short hair. She's looking ragged, boy. Oh, she kind of looked like she'd been strung out on drugs. Real skinny, too. And as he's walking past her, she says, "Do you have $5?" I was thinking, she looks like she needs $100. This woman looks like she needs $10,000, straighten her ass out. But he doesn't care. He's just start reaching around in his pockets there, seeing if he can give her $5. Because, you know, what's $5? I mean, what is that, tip? That's like tip money, right? So William's just reaching in his pocket there, and he goes to hand her the $5, and as this woman reaches up to grab the $5, he sees $5.21. I'm Montagraph, and if you can't speak freely or simply not free, have a good day.